Hello, everyone. It's Sam and Fee. I'm back for another midweek musings. How are you
Hello.
doing, Fee?
Yeah, no, I'm not too bad actually. It's you never know, do you? You never know what it's going to be from one week to the next. But yeah, I've had quite an introspective few days, I guess. Yeah, not in a bad way. I've just been kind of evaluating where we've how far we've come, I suppose, a lot of us in this whole scamdemic journey. And everything else. It's not just a scamdemic, is it? Just this whole unveiling of the agenda. And yes, that's kind of been where I'm at
It has been
lately.
quite the ride, hasn't it?
Yes, it doesn't show any signs of slowing
Quite
down
the ride.
either. Yeah. And you? How are you doing?
No,
Just
no,
no. No.
no, just no, no. I'm in this place where I'm desperately kind of clinging on because within me, like, it doesn't matter, how dark stuff gets. Within me, there is this little spark that is always very much like, don't give up hope. Like, I still do inherently believe in the good of people, in the idea that light wins, and love is the answer. And I know that sounds very wishy-washy and woo to some people, but it is a part, is how I've always been. I do in many ways. I think people have often said to me that I see the world through rose tinted specs, and I probably do. I do tend to see the best in everyone, and I tend to kind of see the good, rather than the shit. But and I think, in many ways, I would much rather be like that, even if
Yeah.
that does make me a little bit naive, if it does make me, kind of easy picking sometimes. I think I'd much rather have that rose tinted spectacles. But yeah, as has been the theme over the last few weeks, it's kind of, this tiny little ember, and I'm kind of, when a fire's starting to go out, you're like,
Mm, yeah.
that's kind of how I am at the minute. I am in this yeah, it's been kind of a rough week, emotionally. I've
Mm,
yeah, I've it's kind of like just this stuck feeling of it's in my personal life and in the wider happenings of everything that's
mm,
going on. It's all just a bit so
mm.
I did last week. I kind of stopped focusing on my emotional state of being, and I've kind of like launched into a bit of a fitness drive, and
Yeah.
I took myself off swimming last week just to get out of my own head, which I really really enjoyed. So that made me
Great.
feel better. I'm trying to kind of do focusing on more of my ex. Well, it is the internal body, isn't it?
Mm.
Still, but less on my mind, because I am finding that very very challenging at the moment.
Well, they're intrinsically linked, aren't they? That well, you know what I'm like with going to the gym. Is so I can have, aside from, obviously wanting to keep fit, so it's to keep like some semblance of sanity when you just have to switch off when you're really exerting yourself. You get into that flow, don't you? But it's really good. I always feel so much better. Like I feel a
Oh,
bit
I felt
cleared out.
brilliant when I came out. The next
Exactly.
few days, my body was just like, "What have you done to me?"
Oh yeah, you'll pay for it at
Yeah,
first. Oh yes.
because I've not yes, I'm not the fittest person in the world. I don't really do. I used to do a lot of walking,
Yeah, which is good.
when the kids were little. But, yeah, I've done less so over the last couple of
Mm,
years, and you know, got to the point I really
mm.
sort this out, Sam. And now both the kids are at school full time. I'm sort of like, the swimming is something I've always enjoyed. I
Yeah, it's
do
really
really
nice.
enjoy being in the water. There's something
Mm,
very, very freeing and very comforting
yeah.
for me about being in the water.
Mm.
So I was like, one of the things I'm going to do, also to kind of take my mind off the fact that my small children are being indoctrinated, and
Oh,
But yeah, try and get back into that. I'm going to go again tomorrow.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
keep I've taken up cycling. I've been cycling a bit more.
Good
Um,
stuff.
and so, yes, taking the focus off here. Um,
It's the
and
best thing you can do. Well, actually, pretty much all the time, to be honest. The thoughts, it's all right if you're not attached the whole time to what's spinning around in your head. If you can just let it just part like clouds passing through the sky,
oh yes, I know.
wonderful.
I know all the lovely, coping mechanisms and
Actually
mindfulness, and
doing
I have
it.
been stepping up my meditation as well lately as well, and a lot of my crystal work. I've been kind of getting back
Yeah,
into
I've
that
been
as
really
well.
drawn back to the crystals again, all those kinds of things that I lost. I think we chatted about it before, like so many things that kind of fell by the wayside with all of this, when all of this kicked off and we were suddenly launched into, well, like a stand in the park,
Yeah,
which took over literally everything. But
took over my life. Yeah.
there was, yeah, there was a lot of things that just, for me at the time, they just sort of became meaningless. And I'm only just now getting back to that part of myself in a way, because everything was so, yeah, it focused on the external and what's going on out there and the threats and all of this. It just, my spiritual life in a sense was just like put on the shelf. I mean, there's always been that like, yoo-hoo, you can't hide. Can you hear me? And I'm like, oh, it's almost like there wasn't time, but also I just, for a while, the joy was kind of sucked out of so much. I mean, it's like this naivety that you describe. I don't think naivety is quite the right word, but it's the only one I can think of, which is that, yeah, just sort of taking pleasure in the little things and out in the world, for a while, even being in nature, it just didn't really do anything for me because I was so cut off, because everything had been, the extent of the evil had been revealed, and so much stuff that, although like many of us have been awake to a lot of this stuff for a long time, this was like, there were
It's
revelations.
another level, isn't it? I
It
think.
was, yeah, it was, and it's just like you look out there and think, well, nothing, not what can you trust? Like nothing is what we thought it was. And of course, you're getting more into the rabbit hole, and some of the stuff is so full on and quite crazy that it can throw you off balance. And I was just, yeah, really don't have time to be, meditating or doing all these things. It's all about, right, we've got to, all that, of course it was wonderful, it's brought amazing things by focusing on bringing everyone together. There was always still that kind of the energetic spiritual component, obviously, but on the sort of more personal level, it kind of fell by the wayside. But as you know, I've been like pushed for quite some time now to really um, focus on that. And
Yeah.
I'm still procrastinating with a lot of it. Um, but yeah, the little sort of pleasures from being present are coming back, and yeah.
It's very difficult, isn't it? You can sit there and I have this because I've as I've said before, I've spent much of my life in this ongoing kind of really extreme roller coaster of extreme highs and even extremer kind of lows. And I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of kind of insightful kind of personal work, and I have this whole arsenal of tools that I know I can that I know work
Mm,
to kind of bring you out of the kind of really negative kind of, you know, down headspace. But there's you know, a difference between knowing it and actually being able to reach it and
Yeah.
access it and embrace it. And you know, I kind of feel like I'm trying to wade through jelly
Yeah.
at the moment with
Yeah.
everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it's finding that that ability to, so I'm trying to, obviously, as I said, you know, I've started swimming and, you know, getting back into you know, healing and that kind of thing. And there's loads of other stuff that needs doing, and I just can't. So it's trying to kind of, you know, celebrate those little wins, those little things that you are doing, reaching for whatever comes kind of easiest that you know
Mm-hmm.
is going to at least give you something, some kind of feel good factor. um but yeah, it's certainly not easy,
No.
even if you do, which I do, I know a lot, you know, like, as I say, you know, of all these different things that I can be doing to help myself. But it's sort of like being in a bell jar, not
Yeah.
a jelly in a bell jar,
Oh, that's
just
a good one. So we're either liquefying caterpillars or jelly in bell jars.
mm.
Kind of,
And they're happy places to
it's
be, aren't
kind
they?
of, I'm not coming out yet. Yes, it's very interesting. I was saying to you about well, I was talking about in a live yesterday that needs reposting because it's just disappeared off Facebook for some bizarre reason. I don't know. Just about the, I noticed as I was driving along, because obviously, like, we're properly into autumn now, all the leaves coming down, and it was
Do
new
like
moon, and you just feel this sort of stripping back, this sort of things not closing down, but you know, it's all slowing down a bit, and everything's just a bit more reduced, like pared back. You see it in nature, and we sort of feel it in ourselves. And I was just reflecting on how we're undergoing this process ourselves through all of this. Like, we're obviously the extent of what we're living in, like this deception, or there's all these like revelations coming, and people are, like I say, we've been aware of these things for many, many years, but the true extent, um,
mm.
how far reaching, how it absolutely in everything this is, was still, like, for me personally, quite a shocker. It was, you know, when you really understand how long this has been going on, how planned, what the goal is, what all of this.
I find
It's
if I think about it too long, it makes my head explode. You
well,
just go,
you, yeah, it's one of those things that, again, if you have to bring yourself back, otherwise you know, it's too huge, it's too huge. But again, see, this is that, it's your bit, it's being revealed, and this is what's pulling me back, you see. It's because with everything, every new layer of insanity that's revealed, it's that, okay, so what is real in all of this? Where do you go when there's total lunacy out there? You're not going to get
it
any
really is
kind
weird.
of, you know, it's like all we can deal with is our own response to stuff, and what does it mean for us, and is it, if it's really destabilized, well, what am I actually, what am I when all of these things are taken away? And this is what I was thinking about as we're entering this new kind of phase of things now, where it's, oh, it's all going to be, you know, the energy crisis, which is very apt, isn't it? It is a bloody energy crisis, you know, but it's our energy that's the crisis. Our energy is being pushed down so low. This is why it feels like being in a bell jar with your
Mine is
jelly in
all
it,
over the place,
because
absolutely
we
all over the
are
place.
absolutely under the cosh energetically. It's so much harder. I've spoken about it before, when you're trying to get back into that connection to those things, you know, that feed you spiritually. The energy is so dense, it's so much harder to reach, even for that first rung where you get some kind of comfort, or whatever it is that it brings you, where you just feel more rooted and more yourself. um but I think as more and more is taken away, the material comforts, which will be okay, we're going to look after each other, we are creating new systems, but we're going to have to go through that whole transition where they're, because they own everything, no, no, you will obey, because if you don't, we take this. Well, no, actually, we'll do our own thing, thanks but no thanks. But it's still going to be bloody difficult, because we're in the beginning stages, but you get to grips with what's actually really important. And so we're not these mindless consumers anymore, because we haven't got the bloody money to be
I
consumers.
mean, I do remember, I mean, when the first lockdown kind of hit, in those first few weeks, I do remember that all across, my Facebook feed from everybody, it was very much, despite the chaos that was ensuing outside, everyone was getting this, this reevaluation of their life and what is really important. And there was a lot of this, oh, I've figured out what's really important,
Yeah.
being with my loved ones and being outside in nature, and all this materialistic crap doesn't matter. And there was this real sense, I remember distinctly feeling this huge sense of optimism, even if people weren't aware of, all the stuff that was going on behind that, that humanity was sort of, realizing, that there's so much crap that doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
And so it's a really, but it feels like so much has happened over the last couple of years, that all that has just kind of gone out the window again, and people are kind of back to being this insular kind of, commercially minded, very much kind of driven by these superficial, um stuff that's going on again. And it, rather than it being a time where people continued to pull together, obviously within, our movement and our community, we're very much seeing that people are pulling together, and we're seeing this rebuilding of community and systems of support, and all that kind of, wonderfulness, that is, how the world's supposed to be. But outside of that, I've just seen everybody kind of just drift apart from each other, and that, that lesson that they learned at the beginning it's not stayed consistent. And I wonder whether this winter of discontent, or whatever you want to call it, is going to have a similar effect of people,
I think
starting to
so.
get back to that place of,
Well, I think it's,
it
when
does.
you're confronted with it, there comes a point where you can't keep running away. You can't turn away, because you're faced with it, and there it is. So if you're in that situation where, yeah, like basic survival needs aren't being met anymore, or it's a struggle, do you come together with everyone, recognizing that it's all about looking after each other, pulling together? We're talking about that wartime mentality,
Yeah.
that there's all this nostalgia around. You think, my God, why? It was a world war, it was horrendous, obviously, but it brought people together. And that's why people look back fondly on it, because, I mean, and they even had, like, obviously way, way more community already, but it's strengthened them even more because it's adversity. And unfortunately, it seems to be with human beings, for some reason, it's what brings out the best. It can be the worst as well, but it will be what brings out the best. It's like you squeeze an orange, you're going to see what comes out. We're the same.
Yeah.
We're the same. What comes out when we're really under pressure, when we're squeezed, and it just seems to be the way of things. And I think in a bizarre way, all of this, it kind of, has to happen. It has to happen. It is like this horrible
That
last
is, yeah.
boil. It's couldn't get pot. We're so addicted now to the consuming, to the external, the sort of hedonism, the status, all of these really meaningless, vacuous, empty things. We've been so conditioned, so programmed that without this absolute, it all being pulled away, some people, yes, they do feel dissatisfied, and they always have done, like we have. But even then, it's so difficult to get back to a more natural way of living. And it's made more and more difficult when, everything out there is geared towards that. You just find yourself as this little, minority. And what do then? Go off and live on a commune, or, it's, we're being pushed, and it's painful, even when it's for the best, because I do have faith. I do, and whether I see it in my lifetime or not, I know that we're on the trajectory now, and we can't be swayed. It's the tsunami's gathering pace, it's growing, and it can't be
Yeah.
stopped. But
I do feel that. I do
yeah,
feel that. As I say, there's still that little ember of hope that continues to burn. And I do. It's the one thing that kind of comforts me when I think about, obviously there's a lot of potential. We know the very concrete things that are happening with regards to energy and cost of living and food and all that kind of stuff. But it is that comfort that yes, it's probably going to be, very tough on everybody, but actually that with any luck, it will be the thing that turns it around, and that there is this which I can't think of the word, but the unshakable human spirit of,
yes.
through adversity, people find the best of themselves, and kind of do find that strength and that courage to kind of deal with the external circumstances and pull through and shine regardless. And I do kind of comfort myself that it is what needs to happen, because we can't go on the way we are. We just can't. The world can't continue like this. It's bloody insane.
Yeah, completely. And it wasn't designed to. All of these, we know this is long, long planned. And I think they're just hoping that the survival fear, to want to survive at any cost, is what will be the overriding factor with us. But it's not taking
I
into
think you.
account the human spirit.
That's what I was gonna
It
say.
just
You've talked
didn't,
about it
because at
before.
some
It
point,
is.
yeah, it's like,
They're
what?
underestimating, the soul and the spirit of who we are and what we are.
Yeah, and what we're here
They've
for.
underestimated it because they don't have that. They
No,
don't have that
exactly.
soul, that love, that compassion. So yeah, hopefully they've underestimated, and we've got it spot on, and humanity's going to rise up. And
The thing is, like, going back to the adversity thing again, it is that stripping away of all those distractions, all of those things that we have thought are so important. And what we've then got is this gem, really, of, oh, so now we know the things that are really important. When we're rebuilding, those are the foundations. And so it's not that we're accepting, oh, we're never going to have this, that, or the other again. It's just, it will be done our way. It's not going to be all about profit and power and money and
instead,
ownership. I mean, no, I'm not talking about, you'll own nothing. No, we will own, but, that kind of owning people, owning that, what are they doing for you? So the fat cats at the top, this whole way of
And the way that life has become a competition as to
Yeah,
who can have the best job, who can have the best house, like who, all the kind of, the mod cons and the latest up to
yeah,
date thing,
exactly.
and it has become very much a competition. I think returning back to the where we're all cheering each other on, and we just want each other to be the best that we can be, whatever that looks like. I think would be a much nicer way of living.
Yeah, and it's not at the expense of anybody else. That's the thing. So in a weird way, I think for a lot of people whose lives have been governed by, just work, 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 to get, all of these things, when that option's kind of removed, you're still existing. That wasn't you after all. Oh, who am I then? Like, what are the things? And when you really boil it all down, it's love. That's what we're left with. That's it. It's just love, like for each other, for yourself, for everything, just for being. It's what we actually are. And we've just moved so far from that, have been moved, have been tricked and fooled and enticed. But and that's why, again, with wartime and things like that, which is obviously terrible, it cuts away all that stuff. You can't do what you were doing before. Everything's changed, but we're all still here. And what are we to each other? And it's the we've been so separated. I was saying to you about just popping to the baker's this morning. It
Yeah.
really struck me. It's sometimes these really silly little things, and it really got to me how much we've lost, how much we've had taken. Okay, maybe we've let it go without realizing. But I just heard about this little bakery that's just up the road, and it's real bread, like genuine sourdough, real, none of this crap, because I'm reading terrible things about bread at the moment, about that you just buy from the things that are in it. I don't even want to, it's just, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't be Chinese
So we
hair.
need to have a chat about bread after this.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Chinese hair.
Yeah, we definitely need to have a chat about bread after
So
this.
I was like, oh, I've got this it's family bakers. So this morning I just like popped up the road. It's like a 5-10 minute, not even 10-minute walk, into the little village, which is lovely. It's still independent shops and all those sort of little places, the cobblers and the bakers and the butchers, little
I really want you to say
cafes.
candlestick makers now.
I know that would be nice. And it was just so nice. It just this really like novel feeling of like people who are obviously they're out every morning, that older people. You're like, oh, good morning, hello. And it's like you can see that they're all the way they greet each other, greeting us as well. That community. And I was thinking, all the time going into these soulless supermarkets, but we've had so much taken from us on a community level. Brady talks about this a lot as well. And he's right, we lost everything at a community level. And that's what's going to get us through
Absolutely.
all of this, is that just bringing it back to we're just so separate. I look at how, my grandparents, they knew everyone in that next door. We had to call them auntie and uncle. That's what you did back then. And it was only when you're old, it's like, oh, so they're not really our auntie and uncle. No, that's just what you did. You call
Yeah.
people like friends of the family, neighbours, they were aunties and uncles. And then there's so many places where I've lived where you went, oh, hello, but that's as far as it goes. And I have to, I can't blame that on anyone else. It's sort of, I'm quite, oh, thank you, cup of tea. I'm quite, I can be quite, I wouldn't say antisocial, but you know what I'm like, a bit, I like my own company. I'm quite
Yeah.
private, but that has been really encouraged to the point where it is to our detriment. Like, you know, do you know that you could just like knock on your neighbour's door and in a time of need? Most of us would be quite reluctant to now,
Yeah.
I'd say. So I think, just to bring it back, it's this, we're facing really, really tough times, but it does bring out the best in us, and we see how resilient we are. And I think it's going to be a big wake up call to people as they do realize, hang on, there's a hell of a lot we can do for ourselves, by ourselves, actually. And all these things that we've been programmed into aspiring to, and that's the focus of your life. Well, actually, no, it means bugger all now, doesn't it? And that's fine. That's fine, because this is a lot more real. This is more authentic and more, it's heart centered, isn't it? And so much stuff will spring from that. So I remain ever hopeful, even though obviously I have my moments where I'm like, oh my God, what
Yeah.
are we going to be?
I know. I know. I know. To be honest, I don't. It sounds strange, but actually, I've got so much going on. On a personal level, that kind of the wider kind of stuff that's going on is it's almost very much kind of like I know, and I think I said it last week. Whatever will be. We tick along, and we can do what we can to safeguard our own survival. We can do what we can to kind of improve the systems that are around us, and make necessary provisions, try and raise awareness, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't know whether I don't have the energy to really worry about it, or whether I have just got to the point where I'm just like,
Well,
whatever.
worrying is not going to
I
help anything anyway. So
well, exactly. I don't know which it is, but either way, I'm sort of a little bit just, yeah. Well,
yeah,
whatever.
and we'll all be, there's definitely, well, there's always the microcosm and the macrocosm, isn't there? So many of us, like I was saying about these great revealings and things being stripped away, it's with us as much as out there. They can't be separated. And so a lot of us are going through all kinds of personal stuff, whether it's,
It's a massive,
relationships, or
yeah.
it's like, oh, what am I here for? What's, like really the big questions. It's
The
all
events over
playing
the last,
out.
it's turned everything on its head, and yeah, I think it's for as many problems that it's caused. I think I still will say, despite everything that's going on with me, I would still say, it's the best thing that could have ever happened, but certainly not the easiest.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was, we would, I was like, it's Dickens. What was it? Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, well done, you remembered.
There you go. Yeah, famous opener. But it's true, isn't it? It's just very, very weird sort of paradox. Like, for those of us that are aware that there's no, it wouldn't be good to just, as much as it might be easier to go back to normal, actually, no, it's not, it can't be done anyway, but it certainly wouldn't, it would not be the best thing at all. um it's still very difficult. It's still very
Sometimes
difficult,
in
but
the
it's also,
in the midst of it all, I'm just like, oh, sometimes I wish I never, like, do you know what I mean? But then if I actually sat and thought about it, like, of course, I don't wish that. I don't wish that at all. I'm actually very grateful.
I think we
Great.
wish for it to just come about in this lovely, peaceful, you know like, oh, it just overnight somehow.
Just wake up and the world's
And
rectified itself. Like, the
it's
truth's
just,
come out, everyone's aware, everyone's
and
awakening,
yeah,
everyone's like forming communities and making the
and
world a
it's
better
all
place.
wonderful and everything's completely in harmony. It's
Yeah.
just when we're changing, it's often painful because you want to cling on to what you know and so do other people as well. Like they it can be, oh, they want you to stay the same. It's working on all these levels, so it's massively challenging. But again, as we always say, we're not on our own. We're so much more powerful together. We don't have to go through any of this alone, as so many of us are experiencing the same thing. It might look a bit different superficially, but actually underneath it's all the same stuff, and we can support each other through it. And yeah, there's nothing quite like it. I do feel that value in connecting and to sort of get over my little hermit ways, those sort of habits where I'm so used to spending a lot of time on my own. I always have done. I've traveled all over on my own, obviously making friends along the way, amazing friends like me and Brady met, but I just go off on my own, be quite happy being up in the mountains for weeks on end, and pretty much on my Todd. But there's a lot to be said for those, like making the effort to sort of make those connections, which we've been doing. The stands. I'm going to run out of time actually, but yeah, just had a wonderful time down in St Albans at the weekend, just in the pub, with about 20 of us, I suppose, from the stand. It was just great, really uplifting. And so yeah, just I would recommend that. This is the time very much now. I've been saying it for like a couple of years, but now like it all feels like it's getting very close, doesn't it?
I don't know where I'd be without the people I've met through all of this, and it does make a difference. It does makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, right, less than 1 minute. We should
Right.
probably
That was a
bid
long one, wasn't
farewell.
it? Yeah.
It was.
A good one though. For me
Lots
anyway.
of love to
Yeah.
everybody.
Speak to you soon. Take care.
Take care of yourselves.